Welcome to the Stay at Home Bookkeeper Academy Podcast. I am so excited to be here today. My name is Deanna Rogers, and I am going to be interviewing Ben Stein from Double, which was formerly Keeper. I'm very excited about having him here today. He's going to be sharing a little bit about how he started the business 5 years ago, what his day looks like, how AI is actually impacting and being beneficial to bookkeepers, and so much more. So, are you ready to get started? Because this is where we're going to be talking real talk with how to grow, scale, start your bookkeeping business. Let's get started. I could not be more excited today to be talking to the one and only Ben Stein. Ben, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited because I was going to say, how many of y'all ever heard of Keeper? But guess what? Keeper is no longer Keeper. Ben, why don't you tell us what Keeper is now?
Yeah. So our new company name is Double, and I think it is reflective of everything that we care about, everything that we focus on. So of course, the foundation of bookkeeping is double entry accounting. So that's where the double name comes from. But I think it's also representative of our desire to help businesses double everything that you can think of, double your top line, double your productivity, double your peace of mind. So a lot of depth to the name.
Well, why don't you share? Because stay-at-home bookkeeper and people that are watching this, or maybe be a part of the academy, they're either they're a bookkeeper, they've already started their own bookkeeping business. They maybe they're very seasoned, or maybe they're just now thinking about starting a bookkeeping business. So why don't you tell us what Double actually does? Give us a little bit of insight there.
Yeah, great question. So some people call Double a practice management system. Some people call it a month-end close manager. Really, what Double does is it's designed to be the place where you go to do your work. So traditionally, when you start a business, when you start an accounting business, you get a practice manager or someplace to like have a checklist of all the things that you need to do. And then when you actually need to go do that work, you go to QuickBooks, you go to your email, you go to a spreadsheet, you go to some other app that you needed to bolt on. And so you end up with this super disjointed experience of running a month end close or doing your actual bookkeeping work that's bouncing between all these different apps. So basically, what Double does is it connects directly to the client's core accounting system. So most of the time, that's QuickBooks, could also be Xero. We also have Sage Intacct, and we're working on new ledgers every day. And once we have that connection, we both give you that checklist of the work you need to do, and also give you the ability to do that directly inside Double. So now, over the last really 5 years as we've been building the core capabilities of the product, we've added more and more tools that you can use to do your work inside of Double. And now you can truly run the entire end-to-end close entirely within Double.
Wow. All right. So you said 5 years. So is that how long Double Keeper has been around?
Yeah, so we launched in February of 2021. We were building in October of 2020, so sort of a few months before that. So yeah, we're just over 5 years now. We're just under 5 years now, depending on what date you count from.
I love that. Now, what made you decide to start this? I mean, I'm just curious generally, like what brought this to you?
Yeah, so this was not quite the from a young age, I knew that what I wanted to do, my heart was set out to build accounting software. But when I graduated college, my first job out of college was the CFO of a tech startup, and this is like wholly the wrong title. I was 22, my boss was 21, so like everyone gets a grab bag of C whatever titles. And in reality, I was our bookkeeper, among other things. And coming out of college, I had this perspective that so much of I thought software was basically solved, and you would like go to a software tool as a professional and like click a button, and it would do as much as a software tool could do for you. Uh, and then I was faced with the crushing reality of so much of accounting is just like clicking between different apps and like opening up tabs and waiting for these windows to load, and then downloading a spreadsheet out of QuickBooks and then modifying it on another window, and then emailing it on another window. And it felt so backwards and disjointed and inefficient and so I decided to leave that job and start my own startup where I could build the tools that I wish that I had. And that really continues to be what powers us to this day. I run our own close at Double. So every month I get the opportunity to see the fruits of our labor, but also to see how much more work we need to do. So we come back with this log list of all these things we need to make better. But yeah, at its core, I guess I just love doing accounting.
I love that. And you work with thousands and thousands of bookkeepers, obviously with the small businesses that you see. What do you think is, and I'm just curious if you have this at the top of your head, but what do you think one bookkeeping mistake would be that you see that small businesses are making all the time that now bookkeepers are able to help solve?
That's an interesting question. I think a business owner will just sort of like they'll go in and just start categorizing transactions in the bank feed, and they just think about that as kind of the main job of bookkeeping. But they don't connect that to the process of reconciliations, the process of like running a review to make sure the actual work is done on a high quality basis. And so some of that is just they want to like check the box and say it's done. Some of it is they like originally don't care and they're just trying to like get something in a good enough state so that they can give it to their tax accountant who can do that work. But once you start to actually want to use your financials to understand your business, understand what's driving it, and how you can use it to make better decisions, that's, I think, oftentimes the point where a business owner will realize the sort of mess they have in their hands, and how helpful a bookkeeper can be in terms of both one, just getting the system in place, and then two, as I'm sure you talk a lot about in your courses, starting to use that data to become more of an advisor to your clients.
That is fantastic. So you talked about Double being able to integrate with other softwares. Remind us again, what other software does it work well with?
So the main integrations are going to be QuickBooks, Zero, and then we have a lighter weight Sage Intacct integration. And so that's what's substantively most of the accounting work takes place in the accounting system. And so that's the main integration that really like every one of our customers leverages. We also have APIs, or we also have direct integrations to things like Anchor, which is a great billing platform. So if you've just got your first client, would recommend going in and getting Anchor, and then you'll never need to worry about billing ever again. And then
Yeah.
your Anchor seamlessly connects to your Double, and you can automatically set up clients in Double, automatically apply templates. It's a really nice, robust integration there. We also have an integration to Zapier, so like any other tool you may use, pretty much is going to connect to Zapier, so you can automate things that are happening in Double to trigger events in other systems or vice versa. And then last but not least, we have an open API, which has been an interesting process. So for more developed firms, more established firms, where they maybe even have their own internal development team, they can use that to connect Double to their own business systems. And then increasingly, something that I've seen that's been really interesting is accountants who are like tech forward, but not traditional engineers, have started to use some of the like vibe coding tools to build their own apps that sort of connect to Double and do some additional workflow with the data they built. So that's been really cool to see as well.
That's really cool. So let's talk about the technology and the future here a little bit. Just so how do you see AI? Because and this is the hot topic. Everybody talks about AI
Yeah.
and automation actually changing the bookkeeping industry.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. So I'd say like you can do the sort of big picture scary, like AI replaces everything, uh, like forecasting. I think if you do that, you kind of can't sensibly reason about like you can't sensibly reason about anything in between. You're like, okay, AI, but I guess my broad point is like by the time an AI can fully replace an accountant, um, that AI can do like everyone's job. That AI can do the sales rep's job. That AI can do the CX person's job. That AI can like do the admin's job. That AI, like who knows how well that AI interfaces with the physical world. But so I like mostly don't think about that level of sophistication. Because I think there's like if that's point B and we're now at point A, there's like a long path in between there. So I prefer to think about that sort of intermediate path. And when you look at that, I think what we will see is you'll have this sort of like you'll have the AI will become more and more capable about doing some things. So AI is great at like categorizing 90% of the bank feeds. We have an AI bank feed, and now the AI will just like auto categorize 90% of the bank feed. And that way, if you're a bookkeeper, all you need to do is sort of review that work product.
Right.
Um, and I see the AI is doing sort of more and more work like that, where it's sort of it will automate 90, 95, 98% of the work. And then you still need to do that final layer of review to make sure everything's done correctly. And that's really the core of an accountant's job is the accountability of the system. Uh, like being that last check to make sure everything is correct. That's like what you pay an accountant, what you pay a bookkeeper for. Um, so until we get to that last point where like the AI has taken all our jobs, I think a lot of the underlying work is probably going to get automated, but the accountant is still going to be there supervising that whole system.
Yeah, and we tell people at the Stay Home Bookkeeper Academy all the time, we're like, embrace it. This is something that's actually going to make your job easier. Don't be afraid of it because it can just absolutely enhance what you're doing, make things easier, make things much more polished for you to be able to do your job. It helps you, but you got to embrace it. And so I think that's the thing is just don't be afraid of it and, go into it going, this is such an awesome, ability to be able to make my business even better. So that's one of the things that we talk about all the time is like, don't be afraid of that. It's just so wonderful. I use
And
it every single day, even my emails. I chat GPT everything.
yeah, and I'll go beyond that. I actually think so. There's like if you look at what AI is able to do within accounting, it feels very much like a continuous improvement on top of what traditional software has done to make accounting better, right? So if you want to go like all the way back to uh, like computers digitizing paper ledgers, that was obviously a great step forward. That didn't
Right.
kill the accounting industry. Then
Exactly.
you had accounting online. That didn't kill the accounting industry, even though it made the accounting much more accessible. Then you had like bank feeds were a huge innovation in terms of not needing to like download a CSV from the bank at the end of the month and then uploading that into QuickBooks Desktop. And you've had APIs to connect business systems together. So now transactions can automatically post. And all of these things help make the accountant's job easier. And you could say that's like replacing accountants, but I wouldn't like, I feel like it doesn't feel like the right metaphor. And similarly, I think if you look at AI as it's actually being deployed, so AI in terms of taking a 1 hour bank feed categorization process and taking that to 5 minutes, or AI and taking a journal entry that used to take an hour to post and taking that to 5 minutes. This sort of like eating of all of this time, but not eating that last layer of review and accountability. It feels very similar to past waves of technology improvement.
I think you could not have said that any better. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So let's dive into what you're doing now. Let's talk about, I think you have a newsletter, right? Is it called Double Digits or what is your newsletter?
The newsletter is now just called the Double Digest.
Okay, Double Digest. Okay. So what made you decide to do a newsletter?
So it goes all the way back to the roots of the company, which is when it was just myself, my co-founder Kenny, we were like shipping software all the time. And we used to just like manually email people every time we shipped a new piece of software that they asked for. So like someone would ask for like we had like 10 customers, like two of them would ask for a thing. And then we would like write their name down on the primordial to-do list that we had of like the list of features that we were going to ship and we would ship a thing. I would manually email those people and say, hey, we shipped this thing. Um, and so as we got more and more customers and we're shipping more and more features, that started to not scale super well. So we said, okay, let's make a newsletter. And the reason it's weekly is because we ship software every single week. So that's really, I think, our core mandate is to continue improving the product, to continue adding value to our customers' lives every day, or I guess every week. And so that's how we get the newsletter, and that's why it goes out on a weekly cadence.
So that's the Double Digest, right?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm curious because we're always talking to the bookkeepers in our academy. And we're telling them like how to get out there, how to grow your business. Would you recommend bookkeepers implement a newsletter?
If you have people to send it to, sure. I think it's an interesting, like we have this natural content, which is like we're shipping new stuff in the product and we're just telling you about the new stuff that we're shipping. Um, if you can think of a thing you want to write about every single week, I think that's great. I think some of our best customers, like best in terms of like fastest growing, healthiest businesses, have this deep technical knowledge in a niche. So they may be in real estate, they may be in home services, and they can really speak to the like financial profile of business like that in a way that's super valuable and super actionable. And so in that case, I think if you feel like if you feel like you have something to say that deserves to be read, absolutely make a newsletter. Um, and I would say it's like also it's not a big commitment. Start a newsletter. If you decide that you can't keep it up, stop doing the newsletter. No one will think twice of it.
Yeah, I actually love newsletters, and I think it's if you can add that to your marketing workflow, it's very helpful. Not saying you have to do it, but we're always trying to think outside of the box. Like what's going to get you in front of people? What's going to constantly remind them of the value of having you? What's going to be something that's educating them for even more? Like for a bookkeeper, it could be you're educating them in the newsletter about cleanup work or things like that that they may not be thinking about, but now you are. It could also be let's be real here. As bookkeepers, you can be an affiliate for different products and services, right? And be able to use those in your newsletter. So I always like the idea of being able to use that in your marketing. If you can't, I was just curious if what you thought on that.
Yeah. No, I'm a big believer in that. I would say my core recommendation is for if you're just getting started and you're just trying to get your first clients, is you just have to like be a little shameless and reach out to your family members who you know have a business, reach out to your friends who you know who have a business, and just like get the base. And then once you have the base, you can build off of that, and then the quality of your work can shine through, and then those people make referrals, and it really starts to snowball from there.
You probably have never heard me say this, and we've been friends for several years, but the people at our state home bookkeeper academy hear me say it all the time. But I do what we call life fitting. When I first started just in owning my own businesses, I was wigged out about marketing. I'm just like, I'm not a marketer. I don't know how to market. And so, but I life fitting. I go through everyone in my life, people I talk to every day. If I go to my grandchildren's school, if I'm going to the store, to my dentist, my hair salon, like all the people you think about in your life, your phone is your best opportunity because all the contacts, like I text people every day, 10 people every single day. I go through my, here's an opportunity because referrals in your network are probably the best that you're going to get. And so I try to tell everyone, I'm like, look, don't be scared of marketing, embrace it of life fitting because the people you talk to, I can tell you that from here to just the grocery store down the road, I probably pass 500 businesses. 500.
Yep.
That's a lot. I only want 20 of them today, right? Right? So like think about the numbers in that, like in the people that you see as you walk in the grocery store, you walk into the post office and you bump into someone. I was telling someone last night that was so funny. I was sitting at a Dallas game, watching, it was 2 weeks ago, to a hockey game, sat next to somebody, and he asked me what I did, and we started talking. And before you know it, he was texting me his son, who his son then had an agency that then had a whole bunch of people that needed bookkeepers while sitting
Yep.
at a game that I never met this guy before in my life, but we sat next to each other. So I think if you love what you do and you bring it to life with you and you include that in your life, you will get the customers, right?
That's amazing. And yeah, I think I couldn't more strongly endorse that.
Well, good. Yeah, I'm going to term that coin, by the way, because I talk about it all the time. Like, I got to do my life fitting because that's what I do. And so, but yeah, you mentioned the word marketing. My husband will say something about marketing. I'm like, oh, no, no, no. But life fitting, I can do that. That I can do.
There you go. I love it.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about kind of what you're so successful. And I'm sure for so many people that are starting out and they've got that fear in their head of I'm not sure if I can do this or what if, and you've got those all those doubts, right? Like what do you think you would say to yourself if you could go back 5 years now knowing what you know now? Like what advice would you give yourself?
Yeah. It's an interesting question. So I would say to the point of I don't know that I had like deep anxieties about whether I could do it. Uh, but I would say like to anyone who thinks they can't do it, like you absolutely can. Like
Mhm.
there's like nothing special about building a business other than just like you just have to keep going through miles and miles of shit. Uh,
Yep.
but
That's right.
what I would say is like the biggest mistakes I've made in my business have been about not doing something, have been about being too slow to make a decision, too slow to take an action, rather than doing the wrong thing. And I can't say that applies universally, but I would say when in doubt, like if you have something that's been nagging at you that you know you need to do, uh, like doing that thing quicker rather than sooner could make all the difference in the world. Or sorry, quicker, sooner rather than later could make all the difference.
Wow, I love that. So, um, I always say do it scared and just do it because it doesn't matter. Like even a step forward, even if it's a baby step, it's still a step forward, right? Like it doesn't matter. So I love that you reiterated that basically. So talk to me a little bit about balance, work balance. How do you balance your personal and business life? Because one of the things we talk about is the joy of owning a bookkeeping business is the fact that you get to choose your clients, choose your time, choose if you want to work on a beach or where you want to work. Like that's that financial security and freedom that you have. So how do you balance all that?
Yeah, I don't know that I'm the best the best person to give an example on this. I'm single, I'm 31, and I work all the time. Uh, so, but I choose to. I will
Right.
say there are times where like if it's the middle of the day on a Friday and like someone asks to go get coffee, sometimes I can get so buried in my work, and I'm like, "Ah, I don't know that I have time to get this coffee." But then I do think to myself, I'm like, look, if I can't like get a coffee with a friend for 1 hour on a Friday, like why the hell did I start this business in the first place? So I do think it's like important if you feel like you're getting bogged down in the work. Like if you do have my bias towards just like working all the time, to remember that you did start this business for a reason and you don't have
Mhm.
to grind yourself into a paste 24/7.
That's true. So how do you unplug and recharge after a busy week like this? Like if you're just really busy, what do you do?
Oh, I don't do a whole lot. I hang out with friends. I like to lift weights. Sometimes I will rock climb, read books. I don't think there's no unique hobbies or habits, but I while away the weekend until it's time to start working again.
I love that you rock climb. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's a it's a I go in and out. I have phases where I do it more often than not. Since I moved to New York, it's harder to be close to a gym, but it's a good way to like get out of the very digital world of like staring at screens all day. It's like the exact opposite of that, which is why I think you find so many people who work in tech do some kind of outdoors activity like that.
I love that. All right. Well, I'm not going to spend a ton of time because I know that I was just you've done me a favor by even coming here today and allowing me to interview you, and I am forever grateful for that. I do want to kind of leave on a question that I would love for you. So people that are listening to this, they're either stay-at-home parents or they're leaving their job, or maybe they've already started their bookkeeping business and they're trying to grow and scale. I would love to know from you, what advice would you give to those that are just now wanting to start their bookkeeping business? That's number one. And then let's take it a step further. What advice would you give to those that are really wanting to scale their business over the next couple months into 2026?
Yeah. I think it would be the same advice, which is just be focused more on sales. I think every accountant sort of like does accounting because they like kind of like it, right? Like there are people who hate accounting, and you cannot like you could not force them to do this job for $1 million a year. But I think people who fall into our line of work do it because they like accounting. Like it's like a fun thing to like reconcile the books and close everything out and get to the bottom of it. Um, and if that's you and you've got a business that's the size that you want it to be, that's great and that's okay, and that's find your balance. But like the biggest, most important thing to do to be a bigger business is to focus on being a bigger business. And the way you do that is sales. So even if you like accounting, and especially if you like accounting, you need to like put that aside. Either if you've already got a basic client, you need to hire someone and have them do that work. And if you don't have a basic client, you really just need to like focus maniacally on growing the top line, and that growth, assuming it's like healthy growth with the clients you want to have, not just like terrible clients who are going to give you a hard time. That growth solves a lot of problems.
Well, and I love it because for me, I look at it and I go, I can choose who my clients are. I can choose my paycheck. I can choose how many clients I take, how many I don't, and I can choose when and if I work. So that falls on me. And I love that freedom that I can do that. Like yesterday, I took off because my granddaughter had an issue and I was able to spend that time with her. You know, that's my choice, right? Like I didn't have to ask anyone's permission. I was able to just do that. And so I think that's the great opportunity that people don't realize is that when you start your own business, and whether that's bookkeeping or whatever that is, when you own that business, it's life changing because you control your paycheck. And again, sales, getting out there, life feeding, that all contributes to the fact that you now can work anywhere you want, be wherever for whoever. If you want to go take care of your elderly parents, if you want to go spend time with your kids, grandkids, pets, dogs, whatever it is, you can choose that because you are the owner of your own business. And I love that because I don't have to report to anybody else, right? Love
Totally.
it. Well, Ben, what would you leave for any last final moments or any last words for anyone that's listening here today?
Oh gosh. If you feel like you want to spend less time doing your clothes, check us out,
Yes.
doublehq.com.
Absolutely. And we will post a link to Double here because we tell our bookkeepers that you guys should be using them. It's such an amazing opportunity to grow your business and to make things so much easier for you. So, Ben Stein, thank you so much for joining us here today. And I really, truly appreciate you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the Stay Home Bookkeeper podcast, where we really do talk real talk. And Ben was here today to speak that real talk with us. And we're so grateful that he was here. We'll see you on the next podcast.